Oh, welcome to Cuckfest 99. What did you say? Cuckfest 99?
Yeah. Yeah, it's sponsored by, I don't know, DeWalt Tools or something.
Dude, I actually have the word cuck in my license plate, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I drive like a Hyundai Accent, which is like, it might as well just be called car. You know what I mean? It might just be like it should be try the new car by Hyundai.
Yeah.
It's like the most generic car you can drive,
Like,
and
yeah, it has the most honest ad campaign. It's like, it has wheels, it has doors. These doors open, they have windows. Like, nothing
it
you're
also has a stereo, technically.
if you crash, you may live. Like,
But yeah, I've got cuck in my license plate, and it makes me laugh every time I look at it. But my wife doesn't really follow current events or the insanity that.
it's a current event now.
well, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's like
I mean,
calling people.
That word came into my life like 2 years ago, and it's been just great ever since.
Yeah, the words snowflake and cuck became popularized in what 2016 or 2017 was when they became popularized. And I'm sure she has heard the term snowflake, but I don't think like she's aware of the term cuck, except for maybe in the most like in the common usage of what like a cuckold is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very interesting because it's like it's like you're explaining it, and like as you're telling people, you're laughing, and people are like, that is frustrating. Like, no, it's like funny. Like,
But it's funny because people use it as a political pejorative. That's the funny thing about it. Like just calling people just be like, well, yeah, because of your political beliefs, you like to watch men fuck your wife. Wow. That's what it's turned into. I want to say, too, that there's like a point in history where that was completely common in political discourse. Like just making references to a dude, like a dude's wife sleeping around.
oh yeah, I bet that's like the backbone of our country is insulting people like that.
Dude, I want to say that there was this, you know who Adam Conover is, right? The Adam Ruins Everything guy.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, he did an like a little mini episode on YouTube, and it was called Other Famous Donald Trumps in History.
Ooh,
And
that's kind of cool.
yeah, it was really neat, and he made reference to some really nasty political mudslinging quotes by like, you know, like Andrew Jackson was a lunatic. Andrew Jackson was a legitimate crazy person, and Thomas Jefferson.
Andrew Jackson, I think, if I remember correctly, he executed a 14-year-old.
Oh, he did all sorts of crazy shit.
Like it was like a wartime execution. Oh, fuck. It was like a wartime execution of like this guy was a deserter because he was 14 in a war zone, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna kill you now.
Yeah, there was all sorts of kooky stuff about old. What did they call him? Old wooden leg, something like that. Old Hickory.
Old
Old.
Think of how crazy of a person he was, and that was the nickname. Like, dude, this guy's insane. Yeah, he's like Hickory.
Old Hickory.
Like, what? Again, no, think about it. Like,
different time, man.
This guy's like an oak table. No, dude, he's like Hickory.
That guy, like, if that's just like a part of language that has just like gone away that we don't have anymore. It's like you call a crazy, you compare a crazy person to like a really solid table.
Just like he's a real balsa wood of a man.
I don't even think they had balsa wood in the 1700s.
Yeah, you know, like a balsa wood airplane. Like, what's an airplane?
Hey, welcome to episode number 114 of the motherfucking podcast. This is, of course, the official podcast of the International Power Rock Combo motherfucking Ruckus from Denver and Chicago, respectively, even though we effectively don't exist for the foreseeable future because the world is on fire, because there's a pestilence going on, and so pretty much music doesn't exist right now. And we're going to talk. Say that again.
I said the gods are crying, but we're still here.
Yeah. For now. We're going to talk about a lot of that today with my guest. Before we get started, though, I want to give a shout out to all the amazing people who back us on patreon.com/mfruckus. You guys make the goddamn world go round. Our patrons, they get access to VIP tickets to shows, early and exclusive content. They've been listening to the drum and scratch guitar tracks of the new record that's probably not even going to come out for a very, very long time. We just give them everything. Pretty much everything that we put on our band chat feed goes to our patrons in exchange for a small recurrent contribution on our Patreon page. We use it to help make this podcast go. We use it to pay for equipment and strings and studio time and hiring artists for doing our videos and comic books and flying Tony back and forth, which is going to be a bigger deal since Tony has a baby on the way. Talked to him yesterday. He is like 100% in dad mode. We're super thrilled for him. Patreon is going to help him be able to participate in the band by offsetting his costs when he travels. So you guys who back us on Patreon, we fucking love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your ongoing support. My guest today is a guy I've wanted to have on for a while. We were supposed to have him before the pestilence started, and he's a former fellow coworker of mine. Honestly, my favorite person to work with when we work together. And it just so happens he also plays drum for the rising up-and-coming jam group. Would you say jam? Jam? Americana?
Whenever people I just say good.
Good?
People ask what type of music we play, but yeah, I'd say it's like rock. It definitely has jam band. It's definitely a jam band, but it's like rock and roll jam band.
Like you guys are more in like the jam scene, I would say.
Yeah.
Like I think jam band is a sweeping generalization that
it's easier to know what it isn't than what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think plugging everything into the jam band category is something that people from my tribe, the metal and punk rock tribe, use to describe music that they're afraid of.
Well, it's also, I mean, we probably do the same thing with metal. Like I'm sure if you would be like, oh, this band's a jam band, and I'd be like, no, they're jamgrass, or like they're like some weird subgenre. Right. But if I was like just sweeping all these bands are metal, you'd be like, no, this is actually X, Y, or Z. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, oh no, this is black metal. This is like extreme Black Death. This is this is glory metal. This is new wave of British heavy metal. Hold on, I gotta fix this chair real quick. There we go.
Yeah, it's like I studied German in college, and a big thing that Germans like to do is like add just like compounding words onto each other to like
to describe things.
Yeah, like it's like I think there's one way, I can't remember, but there's one way to say stop sign that's like 18 letters long or something like that, and it's and I think it's the same thing with music sometimes, where there's just this like constant adding on of other genre, like we're like neo soul jamgrass funk, like it's just, you know.
Right.
At some point, you'll just be naming colors or something like that. I don't know.
Right. No, and I totally get that, and it's interesting because we tend to categorize. Like, do you remember when Pandora first started going? Oh, first of all, let me introduce you real quick. Tyler Gwynn from 10th Mountain Division is on the show this week. Very happy to have him on. Very happy to talk with him. Like I said, the favorite guy that I worked with, and unfortunately we don't work together anymore, but we saw each other recently when he stopped in and decided we needed to make up the podcast that we had originally talked about.
Kindle the old flame.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the first time I saw you after we hadn't talked for a while, the first thing you said to me is, sorry for ghosting you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been stood up by cuter guys than you. You're like, me too.
I know, it got bad, man, because I'm already pretty bad at responding to text messages, but when I have a pandemic to lean on too, like I think I wouldn't respond to my own parents or something. I'd be like sorry, there's just a lot going on.
do you feel that was just more of having an out, or do you think that you were actually suffering some, I mean, it's an obvious answer because we're all going through it. Or do you think it was the result of just like suffering massive stress and trauma from the present situation? Like, were you freaking out a bit?
Oh, so when this started, so I'll give you like the whole story, I guess. So it was like March 15th or something when everything shut down. Like that's when I stopped working at Fire. I woke up and went to bed in two different worlds, kind of thing. And shut up. Sorry, I should just not have that on. But and so then like they shut down the city. We were gonna headline the Bluebird on the 20th.
That's
and then
right.
Leave for a 6-week tour across the country, playing like opening for big acts. This is going to be one of the biggest tours we've ever done. And in the course of like 4 hours, the Bluebird was canceled and the whole tour was canceled. Or like maybe 2 days, I should be more realistic. But so it went from like thinking I was going to be all over the world, like all over the country, couch surfing, everything like that, and then into a world where like you shouldn't leave your house. That
Right.
was like kind of a weird mentality too. And I definitely was freaking out about it. Like, I mean, because you already saw how drastically the world could change. And it was just this idea of like, man, this could get, like, there's no reason this couldn't get, like, nothing is impossible at this point. You know what I mean?
Things
So
that I
was-
had previously not imagined being possible are suddenly possible. And I'm
Yeah.
terrified that like everything I believed in the world is suddenly just going to go off the edge of the earth, which we'll find out is flat tomorrow. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's where they found the vehicles not from this planet on the other side of the earth or something like that.
they broke through the ice wall. Some guy made a rocket that actually worked and didn't blow up 10 feet off the ground. And
No, he made it. They just don't want you to know. They just said, but,
that's what we're going to find out. No, keep going though. I wanted
Turns
because
out-
I wanted to
turns out
ask
the
you
other-
about this.
So it was. I mean, I think it just makes you realize, like, I mean, you have just had a lot of time to think, and like,
Right.
like it's almost like when it was first starting, we kind of tried to make the best of it. We were getting all our groceries delivered. Like we were, we were doing that. We weren't leaving the house. We were masking up. I had gloves. I was washing my hands even if I didn't leave the house. Like I was getting kind of crazy with it. But my mindset was like, I'd rather be in a position later down the road to be like, man, I overreacted. Than
Right.
to be like, I should have done more.
Right.
But I mean, I'll say this whole like not touring, not playing music, it's kind of an interesting like identity challenge too, because so much of my life was taken,
Absolutely.
as you understand too, of playing shows, being on the road, and working on songs, and like it takes up a lot of your life. And once it's kind of not there to the same degree, you kind of have all this free time, and you kind of have to think of like, all right, so what else do I do?
Well, and you
Like,
go, who am I really?
Yeah.
Besides just a dude in a band. Like who am I? What do I have to offer the world? And I remember before my wife and I got together, when we just worked together, she heard me grandstanding and holding court behind the bar and felt that I was being kind of arrogant.
A great place to do that, by the way.
Yeah. She felt that I was being kind of arrogant and snide, and she called me out and said, "What are you who are you without your band? Who are you without this identity that you've built up for yourself?" And it was something that at that time got me rethinking the structure of my ego and whatnot. But this current situation, the pandemic, and not being able to play shows and being faced with what our guitar player Tony has called the great band wash of 2020.
Oh, it's gonna be crazy what bands like. I mean, I think it's gonna be in another 6 months. We'll just see bands like.
Did I lose you? It'll be bands
on.
like what? Sorry, you.
Hold on 1 second. I was saying it's gonna be like bands dropping left and right, because they'll just be like they can't afford to do it, or like it's just not reasonable for them. Hold on.
Uh-oh. Well,
Hey,
cool.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
So it'll be.
Sorry
So
about
you were saying it'll be bands that either can't afford to do it or.
It's just depending on their age, if it's like, if they're in a place where it's like, listen, I could this could be the way I now start another career, or like I'm in a place where like it makes you realize that maybe that wasn't as important to me or something. And I'm not saying this is true with me at all. I'm just saying like it could be this could be people's outs. Like this could be the thing where it's like, listen, we weren't ever doing anything. Maybe this is like a gift that we have an easy way out. And especially like if you're a touring act and you just haven't, and you're like, because they're like, some people can't just go get another job or like bartend or something like that. Some people are like this. They're in such a position like all I do is play music. Like that's the only way I've learned to make money. And when they can't do that for so long, then they might have to, like change their life and get a different
do something
career.
completely different. Yeah.
Another thing I think about too is with this capacity stuff, like, if you think about it, like if you can get, let's use like the Bluebird Theater for example. So that's a 600 or 700 person venue.
Right. It's 550 or 600, I think is what it is.
Yeah. And if you're like, say that's the biggest venue you can get open in some places. They're like no more than 500 people in a room.
Right.
Then like these huge bands are going to start playing those rooms. They'll just play smaller crowds and have more expensive tickets. Right. So then like everyone will kind of be pushed down a venue tier. And so then like the bands who would usually play 1,000 person room is going to play a 300 person room, and it gets smaller and smaller. So then certain bands will break through and other bands will still be kind of waiting for more stuff to happen. And I think that's kind of a little more realistic for what's going to happen is like with this, because it's not going to go from like small crowd restrictions to just a free-for-all. It's going to be like months and months of increasing the capacity and stuff like that,
Well, I've mentioned this on the show a couple times recently. When I talked to our label in Germany, our label rep at Rodeo Star, shout out to Rodeo Star Records and Napalm Records over in Europe. When I talked to Thorsten, our label rep, he said they're not planning anything till 2022. So what I started thinking about is you have this lag of international tours are out of the game for up to 2 years, okay? Because of how long it takes to organize and book an international tour, okay? So you just lose them automatically. And then you have the lag of national tours, which take at least 6 months to a year to book for bigger bands. If you're a smaller independent band, you might give yourself 6 to 9 months of lead time, but generally I start booking a tour a year in advance.
I will say shout out to our agent Tynan at Madison House, because we were talking, we were like, man, we'd really like to do like a big spring tour. And he's like, okay. And then I think 2 weeks later he had it like all lined up. So
wow.
Shout out to Tynan for being awesome.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking, and I mentioned this before, is because of that lag, it's going to be all local bands for a while. Like I looked at the schedule at the Oriental Theater, and it's all.
What's that capacity?
Their capacity is 700, and they are only.
That's a big
it's
room.
A big room.
I like that stage a lot. It's huge.
They're at 10% capacity.
Yeah, so they're only putting like 70 people in there.
80 people, 80 tickets
it's
total.
It's just like no one want like. I mean, I think one thing we've all learned now too is like, part of the show is like. I think what live streams are teaching us too is like part of the show is the camaraderie of the crowd.
Well, breathing the air of the people that are there with you, and breathing the same air as the band that you came to see.
Yeah, like and it's the. I mean, even with these, I mean, it shows like even with people live streaming, they're having house parties to do like to watch Billy Strings live stream and stuff like that. Like it's the community around it. People are in it, so. And that's the thing with like these huge rooms with only 70 people in it. It's like, although something I would like to talk about later, but we're working on like a TV show kind of right now in the meantime. Right. And one of the jokes we wrote was about how like venues are going to be like super small capacity, but luckily a lot of touring acts won't notice the difference.
Right, exactly. Dude, and we were making that same joke too, is it's like for the first time ever, local bands can sell out a show.
Yeah, oh my, yeah, seriously.
It's like, dude, we sold out 80 tickets. Ah! Dude, you look at the
Hey, can I get some reverb in my mic? You won't need it, trust me.
Yeah, you won't need it. Dude, like we had so I looked at the schedule for the Oriental today, and almost like half the bands on the schedule are my friends' bands, and a few of them have been on the show. Shout out to Nate Valdez from In the Whale and Brent Loveday from Reno Divorce. So it's like,
those are two amazing band names.
dude, they're great. They're great. They're awesome bands, but the schedule is all like the Trade-Ins, one night, Reno Divorce another night, In the Whale another night, and In the Whale and Reno Divorce were both touring juggernauts. Like, In the Whale was on the road all the fucking time. And now they can't do any of that. So they get to be the biggest band in the 80 ticket capacity post-pandemic rock and roll scene.
We were talking, me and some friends were talking about how like every show we play from now on will sell out. It'll be like, we're just like, but it'll be like first person in or something, like, like it'll be like we sold, like when we did 2 nights at the Mishawaka, and that's like it's like I think you fit like 800 people in that venue or something like that.
Right.
And we sold out 2 nights. Be like, dang, that's crazy. That's like over 1,000 people. We're like, yeah, no, that it could be, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely could be
close to 250 total, but it's
I mean, so you have a label that's based here in the States, right?
We don't have a label. We have it. We're with an agent. We just have an agent. We don't
Okay, so you have an agent based here in the States. What? Yeah. From what you've heard from your agent, what is the prognosis for the music industry for the next couple years?
Well, first off, I'm the drummer, so they don't tell me anything. But second off, but I mean, it just looks like it's do it, like whatever we can do what we can, So we did like a few socially distant. Like we're doing the Gerald Ford Amphitheater up in Vail, which is like a few thousand people, but there's only like 200 people in the crowd. Like, we're doing like, yeah, it's just, you gotta play the hand that's dealt and see what's going on. But as far as like getting back to the shows we were playing and everything like that, that's going to be, this time next year, maybe, because it's weird. I mean, it's just not the world. Because first off, we're gonna go back down. Like everything's gonna get shut down again. There's no way.
Right. Dude, we're at 650,000 deaths worldwide.
Yeah, we have millions. And it's the thing. The numbers in Denver are starting to climb again.
You know why the numbers in Denver are starting to climb again? Dude. Right? So check this out, dude. So all the states.
Conspiracy theory, or is this
No, this is like it's anecdotal, but I'm sure empirical evidence will come out later. So all the states that didn't follow the rules and got shut down recently,
Florida and stuff like that?
So Florida, Georgia, Arizona, California, you have all these states that are going through massive shutdowns right now, and all their citizens are coming to Denver on vacation.
Yeah, dude, tell everyone it's packed right now. That
yeah,
was the problem.
Fire on the Mountain has been packed with out-of-state IDs. My favorite one that I've seen so far was this guy came in. He was from the South somewhere, and he was wearing this shirt, and it's like a Bernie Sanders mock-up. And it says it's a Bernie Sanders mock-up, and it like looks like the Bernie Sanders font, but instead of saying Bernie, it says socialism sucks. And the guy wore it, and he talked to his girlfriend. He's like, baby, we're going to go to this here hippie Grateful Dead chicken wing joint. Look what shirt I wore. Hey, check it out, baby. God, can't we go anywhere without you embarrassing the shit out of me? Come on.
Oh, these cuck snowflakes are going to love it.
Dude, watch me get a reaction out of these cuck snowflakes, man. So I just gave him the best possible customer service I could have.
kissed him on the lips.
Yeah. No, so we've been seeing an awful lot of that.
Well, that was a thing back home. Like, so I grew up on Cape Cod, like far east. I had to just do directions in my head. The eastern part of Massachusetts, and there's a lot of New Yorkers vacation there. And there was like the Cape Cod Times, the big newspaper, like the big newspaper on the Cape, had this headlining article about like New Yorkers don't come here. Like we don't want you. Like just because you're coming to your vacation house, like very Massachusetts. Like
yeah.
Don't want your money. Like get out of here.
Right.
It was because that's where they were going. They were like, going to their vacation houses on the Cape and stuff like that.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I think the hardest thing is like I've said this a bit. It was like we're in such such a world right now where we never like saying I don't know doesn't end a conversation. Like and I'm not saying this negatively, but we have access to all the information. Like anything you want to know, you kind of can look up without unless it's like a government secret. You know what I mean? Like if I wanted to know like how tall was Winston Churchill, I can just look that up. Like all this, but now we're with this coronavirus. Like there's really there's so many like, well, what about like X, Y, or Z? We're like, I have no idea. Like I don't know what this will do. I don't know what this is, and it's like. I think that freaks us out too, is that we just don't have the answer. We're kind of at the whim of nature, you know?
Right. Well, and there's this other thing that is going on because this applies across a multitude of arenas and a multitude of topics and global issues. There is a massive distrust for authority. And so there is information out there, but people have this distrust because there has been conflicts of interest. There has been misinformation. You know,
Yeah.
you look at like the World Health Organization and the CDC, who have given varying degrees of incorrect information. Plus, you have pundits who are trying to undermine them and what do you call it? Discredit their authority because it what their narrative is doesn't aid them politically. So you've seen this huge spike in conspiracy theories because sometimes conspiracy theories turn out to be right. And when you have a bunch of people who aren't trusting authorities, they're going to be more given to listen to non-authorities, if that makes sense.
If you could choose one ridiculous conspiracy theory to be true, what would it be?
To be true? The lizard people.
That's
the
good.
lizard people. Dude, that would be so, like, if that conspiracy theory was true, that would be fucking insane. Or UFOs at, like, UFO contact, like confirmation of alien life. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, they just did that last week, didn't they?
Yeah, and then they just kind of stopped talking about it,
Yeah.
So.
It's like, did you ever watch The West Wing?
You mean that show from the 90s?
Yeah, exactly. All 7 seasons that I watched. Dude, this is not a joke, in college, I love, like, TV shows for people 2 generations older than me. Like, I used to, in college, I had a class at noon and I had a class at 3. So I would, like, leave class. Well, no, it ended at noon, I think. And I would get home and watch 2.5 episodes of Law & Order and then go to class after.
Dude, Law & Order is rad. I used to watch Law & Order all the time.
It's and like, even though I know the formula, because like they get the crime, they find one guy, and then they're like, oh, it's not that guy, and then it's like there's a twist that it's not the person, and they get the next guy.
Right.
I still fucking love that show. But anyway, West Wing, they have this thing where they talk about like it's like taking out the trash, and it's like on the news cycle, and they'll like know when no one's paying attention to the news, and that's when they'll sneak out all the stuff that they want to just like get. Like, they're just like, yeah, anyway, so yeah, we bombed this place. So we'll go. But I feel like that's almost like what that the alien vehicle news report was, where they're just like, oh yeah, and there's aliens. But anyway.
Right. No, totally. And I heard that, and I got super excited because I was like, I was like, I remember I was out with my wife and my kid, and I was like, holy shit, it's happening. Like, it's really happening. Like, we're going to see aliens. And then the story just didn't develop anymore. You know what I mean? It kind of seemed like it was, like, because all that they really did was push the story about the video of those fighter pilots
the
who...
The Tic Tac thing, right?
The, like, the little thing that, like, flew off the screen. Yeah, I think that's the only one.
There's I've always thought, like, what if just like how, I think it's just my sense of humor. Like, I always think of like like how it could be bad or like the worst. Like, if the aliens came out and they just like looked like really average people.
What if aliens were worse than us?
What if we're like we just have this assumption because they like, but I mean, what if they just like when we went to the burning things we find in the ground route to fuel things? What if they went like, so they could have just gone one degree, like they could be way smarter in vehicles, but then like they could have like no hand-eye coordination or something. Like they're just really good.
Then how did they develop the vehicles?
It took them a very long time. But it's,
they're like dropping tools the whole time.
God dang it! Yeah, they all have the intellect of like just really like they're just really dumb, but they're like they have a real niche for flying saucers. That's all they can do. And we're like, can you help us solve problems? We're like, no.
Like it's like that. We all have that relative who is like a brilliant machinist or mechanic or something like that, like, or like super handy, but they also believe.
They almost burned their house down like 8 times.
Yeah, or they like also believe that coronavirus is a democratic conspiracy to turn us all into fucking Muslim vegetarians or something like that.
I have smart people in my family. Yeah.
Oh, you have an uncle too. Right on.
Yeah.
So same question. If you, or no. Before we move on to that.
Like, I just know, like, if I had someone in my family like that, because just knowing my family, they would like tear them apart, like in a loving way. They're just like, "Are you kidding?" Like trying to like drop that one in on that Thanksgiving this year. Like, so I read this article, just like building up the courage to just never be invited again to anything.
They're like writing out a big list of everything they're going to talk about at Thanksgiving. They're like, I'm gonna shed some light on my family this year.
He said he like stands up to give a speech. Ding ding ding. Can I just, over the last 2 years,
I've prepared a dossier.
Yeah. Why did our uncle bring a PowerPoint in?
Let's start with Nancy Pelosi. All right. Speaking of Thanksgiving, did you hear that Target is canceling Black Friday this year?
Good. Good.
Yeah, like it's unbelievable. It's like almost like this weird, like I'm really starting to believe in the simulation theory of existence, because it's like it's almost. Go ahead.
What about that? What about that makes you believe in the simulation theory?
Just because it's like all these problems are being fixed because of a virus. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things are happening.
Oh, so you think this is like almost like if this was a computer, like this, the virus is like almost a software update getting rid of like bad things.
Well, and it's like, okay, how can we keep them engaged in the simulation? It's like, global pandemic.
Here's the thing about the
civil unrest.
like,
aliens. And then, Black Friday shuts down. You know what I mean?
Like that. They went to aliens and they're like, we have to take it a step further. And they're like, amazing deals must leave.
What do people give a shit about? Buying stuff in large crowds. Okay.
I went to one Black Friday once, and it's a very fond memory. But
you had a good time?
No point to that story. But the No, like the simulation theory. So here's my question: Is it like the Matrix, where we're all humans in pods, or is it like we are just? So the way I've heard it is like it's like we are processed. Like the Earth is just one massive processor, and we're smaller processors in it processing other things, and like and then like that is the planet, and the universe is just another. So it's like we're just. Like
So it's like World of Warcraft or like Fortnite?
I just don't. Is there any sentient being controlling it? That's my question. And I don't think there's like an answer, obviously, but like.
So I think the general simulation theory, and I say this as being an expert in nothing. I'm a almost 40-year-old man who works in a chicken wing joint, who's been playing in a rock and roll band with my friends for 25 years. So I'm an authority.
You probably have a lot more to teach the world than you think.
I'm pretty fucking dumb, but from what I understand is it's mostly a thought experiment about if a simulation existed, it would be advanced enough such that we wouldn't know we were in the simulation, and therefore it is equally, if not more probable than subjective reality is just like natural emergence of our neurological biology, right? And then all the other kind of fantasy ideas around it are kind of like choose your own adventure. You know, it's like it might be a Matrix pod human enslavement by robots thing. It might be the Earth is a processor and humans are smaller processors within the processor, and then there's the universe, which is an even bigger processor. You know, like I think it's kind of up to you what the actual scenario looks like.
I think it's just I don't know. I think just we're just the weirdest thing that's ever happened in the universe. Sometimes it's just like I think life. It's crazy. I think it's a crazy enough theory that just like we just like evolved from toads or something, whatever. You know what I mean? Like
right.
That's crazy enough for me.
Are you familiar with the Fermi Paradox at all? Do you know what the Fermi Paradox is?
Fermi? No.
So
I know the Fermi Paradox.
The Fermi Paradox? You mean that they're cute and they're also scary?
Yeah, we're all just Furbies in trench coats.
A bunch of Furbies stacked on top of each
45. Like, it's a lot of them. They're really... Yeah.
45 Furbies stacked on top.
That's why they don't let you into surgeries, because they're just cutting you open and putting different Furbies in there.
This episode is going to be called the Fermi Paradox. Fermi Paradox. Writing it down now. No, the Fermi Paradox is basically a set of thoughts with regard, like thoughts of probability with regard to the different scenarios as to why we haven't encountered alien life.
Oh, I think that Neil deGrasse Tyson put it perfectly when he's like, do you ever look at an ant and you're like, man, I really wonder what's going on there?
Right.
I guess that implies that they're smarter than us and not just average humans, like we just talked about.
Right. Well, that's within the universe of the Fermi Paradox. There's the idea that like one position of it, one perspective to take is that we are too far away. Another perspective to take is that all the other civilizations in the universe have failed, have reached a certain point and destroyed themselves. Like there's this whole idea of
exogenesis or whatever it's called.
Well, there's this whole idea of great filters, and like we have passed many of the great filters. Okay, like we have survived ice ages. Like what? Oh, like Brita.
Yeah.
It's actually called the Brita Paradox.
Yeah, the Brita Paradox.
The Brita Paradox. Well, so it just presents all these different ideas as to why maybe we haven't encountered alien life. And among the ideas is that even though probability from probabilistically speaking, if that's even a word, I don't think it is. But in terms of probability, it is possible that we are the first organisms in the planet, even though probability-wise there is likely other planets. Like, it's possible that we might be the first. It's possible that we might be the last, and it's possible that we're just too far away and we'll never meet anybody.
Dang, that'd be like living it like that'd be so shitty if we just found out like all these other planets are just fucking popping off right near each other. It's like a party. It's super fun. It'd be like living in a farm town and knowing the city's like 6 hours away. You're just like, oh, there was so like all these planets. It's just it's like Margaritaville. The planets over there and like everything like, and then we're just like the fucking Podunk Farmville out here.
You're hearing about like all these amazing parties and like and shows and stuff that's going on to like in the city, and it's like,
oh, there's a never-ending Motley Crue concert on one planet or something.
That is no, dude. That is a dimension of pure chaos, like in the event in Event Horizon. Like an endless Motley Crue concert would be a dimension similar to hell, I'm pretty sure.
Just in the crowd here and kickstart my heart again, like, just fucking kill me.
Dude, I've been at this concert for 70 years.
There was a Stephen King movie about that, or like so Stephen King did a special that NBC did once. I think it was right after Law and Order, before ER. They did like an hour. It was like Stephen King like hour, and it would do like a mini series of different shows he did, and one was Rock and Roll Heaven, and like, but the concert, the scary part was the concert never ended. Like, they just kept playing and people in the crowd were like, we've been here for years. Like, literally what we just said was a TV show you can watch on YouTube now.
Really?
Yeah, it's fucking
like
Janis Joplin's there, Jimi Hendrix, like all these, and they're like, oh, it's Rock and Roll Heaven, they're gonna play a concert, and you see people like leave.
Wait, what was this on?
It was on NBC. They did like a Stephen King hour or something.
Was it like the Langoliers? Do you remember the Langoliers? No, where there were those little crappy CGI characters that devoured time?
What?
Yeah, it was really weird. It was like Balky from Perfect Strangers was on it. And I can't remember any of the other actors that were in it, but basically this airplane flew through a rip in the space-time continuum.
And they go to an airport. I remember the scene, and they the way they got off the plane is they used the slide, and there were these things, and this guy was kind of crazy, just kept tearing paper. I remember this kind of. Yeah,
and like, so basically,
I think it is the same thing. It's the same series.
It was a series?
No, it's like each episode was a different story.
Oh, no. Well, no, because the Langoliers was probably the worst Stephen King thing ever made. By the way, it was probably the worst Stephen King thing ever made, and it was a full-on mini-series dedicated to this kind of neat idea, but really poorly executed idea of this plane gets like, they end up essentially stuck in the past, but like the moment before now, essentially, like they end up just kind of lagging behind the.
It's almost like Stephen King totally forgot there was a meeting about this movie and just made it up on the spot.
Let's see. They get stuck in time, and the beer tastes really weird and doesn't have bubbles in it, and there's no people because they all exist in,
And they're not sold, and he's like, and they're on an airplane. Like, all right, done, we're in.
As long as it's got an airplane in it.
Yeah.
We paid a
lot of money for that.
So basically what the plot is that, like, these guys get to see what happens to time after the moment is passed, and there's these little creatures called the Langoliers that devour reality behind present time.
Jeez, that's like, even for Stephen King, who would just like drink until he couldn't remember writing books, like that's even weird. Have you ever heard that? He doesn't remember. What book is it? What about the dog? What's the story around the dog?
Cujo?
Yeah, he doesn't remember writing it
because he was so drunk.
Yeah, he was just hammered. He was so hammered that he just was like, I don't really remember writing that book.
I'm not surprised. He used to party, man. He's Stephen King's a punk rocker, man.
Yeah, he has a little band, I think. I think he like has a band with him and his friends or something. He posts on his Instagram. He'll post photos of it and stuff.
Dude, I would be in Stephen King's band even if he like sucked at his instrument, because he'd have like lots of really great ideas for motifs.
He'd also probably have the best jam room ever.
Oh yeah, like, pretty good.
He'd probably have a studio and have no idea how to operate it. You know what I mean? Like he would just be like, yeah, I just bought everything. Like, when you have that,
I thought it'd be fun. Yeah. I mean, I've written all the scary books of your entire lifetime.
I created fear. Like
Fear as you know it came from my brain. He's a pretty fascinating character.
I think he's 100. I think he's sober now too. I think
probably. I did see a picture of him at the Misfits reunion show in L.A. Like he went to that shit. Oh yeah. But there's something interesting about him is one of his books is called On Writing, and he just talks about the process of creating. Like he just talks about like how he goes about writing a book. It's not a horror story. It's like it's a reference guide. And
doesn't he say like he writes like a few sentences at a time, or like he doesn't like sit down and get like, he'll be like, I got 6 pages. That's a good day.
So what I understand is that he sits down and he puts in basically his 1,000 words every day, or his however many pages every day. Like he sits down and just does the work, no matter how shitty it is. There's this really good video of him actually having a live conversation on a stage. Remember stages? He has a live conversation on a stage with
6,000 person room. There's 8 people there.
Yeah. He has a conversation with George Martin.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm thinking of. Where like that George R. R. Martin's the guy who's like, yeah, I write like 6 words at a time. Like
yeah. So like
Stephen King's like, how do you do that?
Well, yeah, and George R. Martin asks Stephen King, he's like, how do you write so many fucking books so fast? And Stephen King's like, I sit down and I write every single day, and no matter what. And when you compound that and aggregate that over time, you produce a body of work. Like he's a pretty inspiring dude. And as far as, I definitely recommend On Writing to anyone who
I should try that. I've been writing recently some.
Well, I mean, I just mean his attitude applies to any craft as far as I'm concerned. It's just like... Well,
there's like the... what's his name? It's the guy who wrote The War of Art.
Stephen Pressfield.
No, maybe it wasn't him then.
No, The War of Art is Stephen Pressfield. He wrote The War of Art, Do the Work.
I think it's Do the Work, yeah, where he's talking about like, if you're like, there's no, like, if you're a doctor, you don't get doctor's block or something. Where he's like, so writer's block isn't a thing. Like he's like, he kind of. So I was listening to some author on some other podcast, and he's like, yeah, I read that and finished my book 5 days earlier than I thought, because I guess, I can't do that.
Right, and it's we talked about this on the we had Adrian Connor from Hell's Bells on here recently. Shout out to Adrian, and we were talking about the 50 pounds of clay idea. Have you heard of that?
Oh, what's that?
Which is basically like, so the story goes, whether it's a true story or not, I can't actually say. But
in a room like this, on a day just like this.
On a night just like this. Now, there's this story basically that there was an experiment run, an educational experiment, where a group of an art teacher had 2 groups of students. And the first group of students, she said, I'm going to grade you based on the quality of your work. All right, if you can produce one perfect piece of pottery, I'll give you an A. And then I'll judge them based on the quality of it, and sent them to work. And then to the second group, to group B of students, said, I'm going to grade you based upon the quantity of your work. Give me 50 pounds of pots, and I'll give you an A. Give me 40 pounds, I'll give you a B. Give me 30 pounds, I'll give you a D, on and on like that. And at the end of the experiment, they found that the greatest quality of work came from the quantity group, because while the quality group was sitting there theorizing about what the perfect piece would look like, the quality group was busy creating and honing their craft and getting better and better and better and producing a wider body of work.
It's like the Thomas Edison, who he's like, it's like I didn't mess up 1,000 times. I just learned I learned a million ways not to make a light bulb, kind of thing.
Right. What did he say? What did he say? It's some story about how many times he failed in the process of succeeding. And, we romanticize that story, even though Edison was just the public face.
A real nifty guy.
He was a real nifty guy, who basically took credit for a bunch of people's work. But his laboratory, the people that worked for him, put out a tremendous amount of patents and put out a tremendous amount of prototypes before finally arriving at the final, like what we would know as the incandescent light bulb.
Yeah.
Talking about light bulbs, man. Hey, if you're just joining us, we're talking about light bulbs here on Cuck Talk.
WKUK.
WKUK. Hey, if you're just joining us on WKUK, we're here talking with Tyler Gwynn, head cuck. Tyler, how you doing?
I was thinking about just figuring out how to make a soundboard of all the old radio noises, like. Oh my God.
New sounds.
Yeah. Sounds of the Rockies. Classic hits of today.
So tell me, so we talked a little bit about, or we began to touch on what you guys have been doing to stay engaged and keep your band together. Because, man, we talked about once you're out of the container of your scene or of the identity of being in a band every day, it's really easy to kind of find yourself busied with other things and that part of yourself to slip away, And obviously you guys want to keep your band together. So what have you guys been doing to keep it together, keep engaged, keep advancing?
So luckily we right before quarantine, literally 2 weeks before everything shut down, we finished a Kickstarter for our album, our third album, and we raised money for that. If we had waited another few weeks, we would have been screwed. But we raised it because could you imagine everything shutting down and us being like, hey, I know you're having money for groceries, but I'm trying to be a rock star.
Right.
But
right.
And it's already weird enough asking for money, but when no one has it, then it's really
right.
Weird.
When the whole planet goes on a GoFundMe,
you're like man, that's fucking. Can I have some money? Yeah, but
speaking of which, shout out to our patrons. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm just leading you along
for backing us.
But so we actually just did a lot of time in the studio. I think we did 9 days in a row. I was not luckily, but I got my stuff done in the last 2 days, and the rest of the guys were in there for 6 days after me, doing a lot of overdubs and tracks, and we got a lot of songs recorded. I think more than we could actually put on the album. So we're now in the process of kind of deciding which songs go on the album and all stuff like that. And it's it's an interesting problem to have, because someone will say this, it's I think these 8 songs, and someone will be like, yeah, well, what about this song is really good, and we're like, they're all good. We can't it's they're all good, but we just have to find what's the goodest.
Right.
But so we've been doing that, and we're actually working on some type of music and skit show right now.
Which is awesome. I love this idea.
Yeah, and so it's given me a chance to kind of like I mean, you and me when we were together, we would just do bits all the time. Like,
Dude, that was my favorite part about working with you. Was just like cracking jokes the whole time.
To a fault where we would like people would be like, "Can I get some help?" We're like, no, give me a
Hold on, I gotta finish this joke. This is very important.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. I don't care if you're hungry, but so I've been working on some stuff like that, and I think it's just right now the question is like, and I'm sure there's so many different. This has happened in the past in ways where like, bands used to be able, like Steely Dan used to not have to tour. They could just be a studio band. Like,
I mean, the Beatles, Harry Nilsson is another one.
You could make money and not tour, and then that changed.
Right.
So then for a long time, it was you had to play, it was a combination of record sales and live shows. And then it became a lot of live shows, which I think is why jam band or improvisation in shows has gotten way more popular, because like then people will come to multiple shows because they know it'll be a completely different thing.
Right.
But now with that kind of changing, now we're in a world where like, what does it now mean to be a performer?
Right.
And because if you can't do live shows and live streams there's like a kind of unless you're like huge, unless you're like Billy Strings or Green Sky, at least in our world, like your lives or like Panic, they just like show old concerts. Like it's kind of a ceiling on that. So we've been just thinking about what other avenues are there for us to be 10th Mountain Division and still provide a service to the public in some way and be a band. So it's an interesting challenge, and I think luckily we're on a place like where it's not like a life or death for us right now. So we can we weren't really living off it before, so we're not worried about living off it now.
Right. I mean, are you still doing stuff to keep your fan base engaged, though, or are you guys just kind of letting it be okay that every band is off of everyone's radar right now?
I mean, we've been doing live streams. We've doing some shows in Colorado. So we did 2 nights at the Mish, which was fun.
Was it weird?
Oh yeah, super weird.
Dude, our producer Gordo did one of the shows at the Oriental and said it was fun, it was great to get out and play for people, but it was super weird.
Well, so here's the thing: the Mish is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite venue in Colorado to play and go to, because it's like it's super secluded, it's beautiful, it's like you're in your own universe for it. And we were sound checking and doing everything, and I talked to the sound guy, and I was like, oh man, I don't know if it's gonna be weird or not. He's like, dude, don't worry. It's definitely going to be weird.
It's going to be the weirdest show you've ever played.
And it's like, because it's like the idea of like, it's what we were talking about earlier. It's like, it's a sold out show, and I'm super happy we did it tonight, but it's funny to like, the idea of a sold out show and like the social distancing. There's just this weird, where everyone's still having fun, but there's still this cloud of restriction and like, kind of something on the horizon. But that being said, it was super fun. It was nice because it gave people a chance to forget about it all and like do why people go to music, forget about the world for a second and then just enjoy living in the moment.
The weirdness factor, I'm guessing, isn't too bad because we're all going through it together at the same time. So it's like it's weird, but it's weird for everybody.
Thing from Prince, like we're trying to get through this thing we call life or whatever.
Yeah.
But like,
so I guess this is growing up. I
hope I continue to grow up. But I mean, so we've been doing shows like that. We just did a live stream from the Villar Center, the Villar Performing Arts Center in Beaver Creek, which was, I mean, playing a room like that was.
That's really cool.
You feel so out of like, talk about it. Just got a hair in my throat. Talk about imposter syndrome, where like I'm in a room where like Herbie Hancock, Ringo Starr, Cheryl, like all these huge names. Like, yeah, this is where they would. This is their green. This is where they would be, and like it's the same operation. I'm like, why are we here? Like it's like but it was super cool to do that show. We did like an acoustic show, so it was very different from what we usually do. An awesome challenge. And so, I mean, we're still getting out there as much as we can. And I think coming into the fall, we have some other stuff we're working on. And it's, you know, I think it's before you're really worried about always being engaged and always being this, but I think it's kind of an accepted thing that everyone's a little distracted right now. So if you're not like pushing them for this or pushing them for that, like they'll still be there. Like life's just on pause for a second.
Right. And I've been trying to tell, because I've gone kind of a different way with all of this, because I can't play shows. Our guitar player lives in Chicago. We're not going to put him on an airplane and fly him out to play for 50 to 80 people. You know what I mean? So we're just, and especially,
it's like, it's not to a degree like trying to play right now is like kind of pointless.
Like if he lived here, I would do it for sure. If he lived here, we would play shows to have the experience to be with people. But the fact that we haven't has really helped me to see that, like, you know what? It's okay that modern wisdom of you've got to post something on Instagram every day. You've got to do a live stream on Facebook every week. You have to have this many subs on YouTube or you're a complete and total failure. It's like, that's not entirely true. In fact, it's like you may not have the same metrics on the internet, but the people who love you are going to be very excited to see your name pop up when we all fucking peek our heads out of this. They're going to be like, oh my God, I'm so glad you guys are still together.
And I think it's like, you know, I think it's also the thing of like what you want out of music too.
Well, there's also this like,
you know, it's like what people like, like, you know, like what you as the musician or you as the creator, it gives you like a reset almost. So when you come back, you can kind of maybe have a new image or a new thing or like just approach the whole craft differently.
Well, it's like, do you want to be a musician, or do you want to be an SEO expert, or do you want to be a fucking social media expert? You know what I mean? And I know all that stuff is important, and we're doing a fucking live stream podcast on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook right now, so I get the irony. But you know, it's like
you do this, but you don't want this to be everything.
So I'm going to share something with you that has been something that I've been kind of like working through for a while, and I've talked about it.
Like, I'm going to share with something. I witnessed a murder when I was 13.
Well, so I had to change my relationship with social media. I won't say that I quit social media, because obviously I didn't quit social media. I didn't shut down my accounts. I didn't, you know.
You have to change it from like a personal to a professional mindset?
Yeah. I mean, I got rid of the apps on my phone, and I really only use Messenger, and I share stuff to the band page, but I found myself getting swept up in crowdthink. I found myself siloed to a degree. And I think
siloed? What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess it would, like, ideologically, I should say that I found myself observing a silo that I had been in, ideologically speaking, to where, to basically where I began to observe how my thinking was corrupted, and I was losing my ability to reason. And I found myself just getting, you know, my fear and anger response triggered on a regular basis. And it was affecting my relationship with my family. And I had to change my relationship. And so because I had to change that relationship, I stopped doing the daily videos that I was doing.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I began using the setup, the breakdown, the posting and promotional time that I would have normally put into those videos, and instead put that into using that block of time that I had carved out to play my fucking guitar, and learn about music. and practicing getting better and practicing developing the craft. And as time has gone on, even though I feel like at this point I would be much more able to pop in and out of the feeds and like I've kind of purged my brain to a baseline that I would be able to handle, I don't miss it. Like I've kind of unplugged from that mode of thinking, and because of the current situation that we're in globally, I've just been focusing more on the immediately local, you know, the top 3 things that are important to me, you know, my wife and kid, fucking playing music and providing for my family, you know, going to work, like basically, and my other relationships, you know. I've only been able to focus on those things. I mean, I follow the news and I follow world issues and I keep myself well informed, but I'm no longer participating in the ideological Ponzi scheme that is social media.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have been thinking about that a lot, like, because I was so, in kind of a different way, but I've been trying to focus on, like, dealing with my anxiety a lot recently, and I think a lot of it comes from the concept of, like, you know, judging your behind the scenes with everyone else's greatest hits.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, like, Instagram and stuff like that, well, I love it, and I love using it because I love posting, like, funny things and, you know, stuff like that. It can kind of, it's a double-edged sword where it can really help you. It can be fun to connect with people because, like, I mean, I have a lot of friends and family still back east that's how I kind of keep in touch with them and know what's going on. But at the same time, and then when you're like, don't do anything for 2 days and you see people hiking and doing all this and hanging out and laughing and having fun, you kind of, it makes you like question if you're making good decisions or like you're, and that can just be, and I don't know if that's just like a personal thing or Instagram has created that. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think as a creative, you know, nothing hurts worse than seeing one of your contemporaries outperform you by leaps and bounds, at least in terms of your perception. You know, seeing a band that you play with or have played with getting on some amazing tour or getting some big opportunity, you know, you begin to compare that to yourself and go, is it something wrong with me? Like, is there something that I'm doing wrong? Is it just that they're awesome and I suck? You know, that comparison, which is totally universal, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, even the band that you look up to the most looks up to someone else and holds themselves to some other impossible standard.
I would love to know that, like, U2 is still just like, yo, fuck the Rolling Stones or something. They're just like...
No, I don't know. I think that no matter how high you go up in the up the ladder of the entertainment world, I think that self-doubt is part and parcel to the creative package. You know what I mean?
I think it's just like so like it's hard to take yourself or like leave the ego at the door sometimes. You know, well, it's like you put so much because it's not like you're just making something and if it doesn't work, it's like if you're not like making a machine. You know, you're not. It's actually a creation of like your emotions and your being and everything like that. And if it doesn't get a good response, it's almost like you're. And I'm saying this not as I don't write songs or anything, so I can only imagine. But like, it's like people are saying like, hey, you know that part of your soul? Yeah, I don't really like it.
Or I mean? it didn't even register with me.
Yeah.
You know, like because no one is there for the process. You know, no one is there for when you were sweating it out, playing your drums on this recording and struggled with this take and really practiced your ass off to get to this certain level, and then somebody listens to it on the internet and they literally like listen to it for 30 seconds and maybe if you're lucky go, oh, that's cool, click.
I think about that with like dating apps sometimes too. Like I like that, like Tinder, where like I can just like in like 2 seconds you just write a person off just by looking at them. It's like so weird. You're like no, just like
nope.
You know, no. You're just like writing people off. It's so I don't know. I think it's because I can see people do it. They like see a photo of me and like, oh god, just like somebody because I see Charlie Manson over here. But
See that's why they don't Mick Foley actually. That's why they don't. That's why they don't report. Like, I mean, I assume I've actually never been on Tinder. It was before or after my time, but you know, I assume they don't report data that says how many times people swiped off your picture.
What if that was what if? Could you imagine just like every day getting the report like 600 people did not like you today?
Dude,
like,
I'll bet there is a third-party developer who has a who has some sort of like what do you call it? Update that you can add to the app, like jailbreak the app or whatever the kids call it. Have something where like you can go on like because there are third-party developers who come up with things that are like, you know, get more information on your Facebook followers you know, find out when someone's unfollowed you or find out when someone has unliked your page or whatever. I guarantee there's a third-party app that's like, see how many people don't like you on Tinder.
Dude, I've had this idea for the worst game show in the world sometimes.
The worst game show. What would be the worst game show in the world?
It's called Who Hates You More? And it's you stand there, people from your close personal life come on stage and you have to guess which one hates you more.
Oh my god.
And it's like I don't know how it would run. You'd be like, I think him. He's like, no, he actually likes you. And the guy's like, why would you think I hate you? And then,
dude, and you could have like, you would have to have your casting director find like super like shocking cases.
Yeah, it's like no.
Where it's like you bring someone on, it's like your mom hates you more than anybody you know.
or you have to guess like which parent loves you more or something like that. Just like because remember there was that show. It was called like Would I Lie to You or something like that. Do you remember this? No, it was but they put people into a lie detector.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember once there was one where the guy it was like, it's just they would ask these horrendous. It was like, did you gamble away your kid's college fund or something? And I was like,
oh my fucking god.
Yeah, and it's like if that's a yes, like you're about to watch a family never talk to each other on live TV. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, and if they're even asking the question, chances are the answer is yes.
It's one of those things where it's like, why would you ask that if that's not a possibility?
Right.
But it's like, yeah, I just thought there would be always. That's kind of like what I'm doing.
Who hates you more? They had an app kind of like that. Do you remember Saraha?
No.
Dude, it made it maybe a week. It made it maybe a week, and then it completely failed.
So it'd be like just like society rates you or something like that?
So basically what Saraha was anybody could post their honest opinion of you completely anonymously.
Oh my god, that's awful.
Yeah, so basically what it was the old internet. You know. It was basically AOL Messenger, which is, you know, I remember when that was a thing. You know, like
I got one and my parents didn't want me to have one. They're like pretty mad, and they're like, "What's this?" I was like, "Nothing."
We had a message board on our website when our band first started when we were in high school, and anybody could sign up on the message board. You didn't have to give any information. I mean, dude, AOL Messenger. There are tons of people I was friends with on AOL. I have no idea who they were. You know.
Can you imagine opening that? Like, talk about a time capsule. If you could open up your AOL again, like see your about me, you remember your information and stuff like that.
See transcripts of your old conversations.
I have a line from an Atari song on mine. I think I would beat my AOL self up right now. I think I'd be like, this kid is so lame.
Like, I mean, I guess you can. There are still anonymous sites. Like, can't you be anonymous on like Reddit? And you can have, like, Twitter and things like that.
You can have like burner accounts. Like people have like fake accounts that are just like they're like people
Sock
literally have
puppet
things-
accounts or whatever they're called.
No, they're just like it's a burner. So if you want to post something embarrassing, you can just their names will literally be like, "This isn't my real account" or something like that.
Right.
Like I've seen that on Reddit before. I know 4chan you can be anonymous. Well, I've never been on 4chan, but I know you can be anonymous.
Well, that's supposed to be
like
the whole
the-
draw
yeah.
of it, right? Is like so incels can go on there and
So
go.
incel.
"Bah!"
Oh
So a
my
bunch of
God.
like, and what it mostly is I like to imagine that all the people on like message boards like that are all just 14-year-old kids like I was when I was 14, just like posting the worst shit that they can on the internet and then just like laughing with their friends and running out of the room. You know what I mean? Like, I like to imagine that like literally everyone on there is just a kid that's like trolling the whole planet and getting people
It's
upset.
that dude from the Jerk Ranch joke we used to have.
Oh yeah, the Jerk Ranch.
Yeah,
So I've tried to spread that joke around and it hasn't made it. Dude, it's such a good one.
It's because it's just like it's so dumb though. It's like
So to
what is it? It's
explain to
just-
people how the Jerk Ranch joke worked is basically when you are working on the expo at Fire on the Mountain, you see the order of the wings and then you see what the sauces are and you see what the dressings are. So it would not be uncommon to be like 12 wings, jerk, ranch. And so we would say that out loud. And when we said jerk ranch, that like there was a whole series of jokes that went with just the different abbreviations on the lines. And so the jerk ranch joke was when we would see a ticket come up where the sauce was jerk and the dressing was ranch, we'd be like, welcome to the Jerk Ranch.
All hell broke loose.
Yeah, and so the premise was it was a ranch like that you could go on vacation to have like a
jerks.
Yeah, well, to have like a City Slickers like experience. But everybody on the ranch was a jerk, and they were jerks. Like they weren't just jerks; they were like 11-year-old jerks.
Yeah, it was all a bunch of like angsty 12-year-olds.
And then like it would always allude to like some sort of like deep-seated trauma. Like it would be like, welcome to the Jerk Ranch. We shoot horses with spitballs all day long. And they would be like, my mom got a new boyfriend. His name's Jimmy, and they go on vacations without me.
My mom always picks me up late from Taekwondo or something.
Welcome to the Jerk Ranch. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
but it just,
Welcome to the Jerk Ranch. My mom and her new boyfriend go to KFC and eat it right in front of me without giving me any.
yeah. My mom's an anti-vaxxer. Like it's just, or like it would just be literally us just back and forth, just having this like, and then it developed into like what type of car the mom drove. Like it's,
Nobody on the bus will talk to me. Welcome to the Jerk Ranch. Yeah.
yeah,
That was a-
I have cut off flannel vests as my main form of clothes, but it's.
I imagined everybody on the Jerk Ranch looked like Randy from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
I always thought they looked like what's the Scott from A Christmas Story? What's his name?
Dude, same thing.
Yeah, the guy just like. Dude, oh my god, I loved it. I think one was it's like my parents fight over who gets me for Christmas because neither of them want me or something like that.
My dad bought me a Nintendo this year, but he only did it because my mom didn't want me to have one.
He bought me an Xbox for the second year in a row or something.
Just to piss my mom off.
Yeah. Oh my god, it got so bad. And it's like honestly, you try to, it's one of those jokes where you try to explain it, and it's like the people are like, "That's horrible," and you're like, "Right."
Dude,
Oh,
that's the worst part. That's the worst part of when you can't do normal band stuff anymore. It's
Yeah.
like you've got all these inside jokes that literally nobody gets except the guys that you go on tour with.
So we do this thing. It's kind of that we just like to make up fake, ridiculous names and say them in Southern accents. Like we'll just be like, my name is Bartholomew Buttertrump or something like that. And we'll just like, my name is Chutherfoot, Esquire, or something. And we'll just literally just say these things back and forth. And we one time I think we got to New Orleans and we were in the bus for like hours. Like it was just one of those trips where like it never ends. And we get out and we are so just jacked to be out of the bus. We at one point are running around our friend's apartment in circles playing catch with each other, just saying ridiculous names. And our friends have no idea what's going on. They're like, oh, our friends, they're probably gonna be tired. And I'm like, I'm Ernest Buckchamp, like running and like throwing things at me.
Right. Dude,
But
and
yeah.
like there was like I like look at pictures of us when we were younger and I think about the jokes that were going on then, and at the time we were like, man, people just wish they were as fucking funny and like close and goofy as we are. And then I look back and I'm like, people probably thought we were completely obnoxious. They probably thought that we were like alienating because all we talked about was inside jokes and just like made fun of everyone everywhere that we went. And it's like, I wonder why we don't have so many friends from back in those days.
You're like, oh yeah. I mean, I think in some ways you just develop a weird language when you're in a band that like you can just say like I can't think of any, but I know if we were all in the room right now, we would all say something that just didn't make sense. But everyone, all of us would be like cracking up. We'd be like, this is comedy gold. Like it's
right. Well, and I've had other bands stay at my place and they've got inside jokes and I'm like, okay, this is great and all, guys, but I can't relate to you on any of these jokes. I have zero context. I haven't been living in a small box with you for the last month. Can we talk about anything else?
Yeah, it gets this weird point when you're on the road that like you like feel weird. Like if I'm out, like I'd go out. Let's say I'd go out to dinner with friends in the city we're in, and it's just me and people I haven't been on tour with for 6 weeks or something.
Right.
And it's like almost like I have to. I'm like consciously like I have to be on my best behavior right now, like because I can't. Like I have to like think about what I say.
Yeah, you become feral. You become feral.
You do, and I mean. It's funny. I do miss that about touring. Like I think I'd miss like the middle. If we did like a 6 or 8 week tour, I miss the middle like 4 or 5 weeks.
Right.
Where
I mean that's a long time to be on tour. And go ahead.
No, you keep going. You go.
So what we would describe it as at the time is we would talk about it as being the opposite of going to prison. Like basically, you don't get institutionalized, you get disinstitutionalized.
That's a great way to put it.
To where it's like you go, when you're touring, when you're out on the road with your friends doing stuff for a long period of time, the only thing that matters is the mission. Like, and hanging out.
And also every day, it's like you get this routine where it's like you wake up, you drive to a new place, you go play a show, you fall asleep way too late, you wake up way too early again, and you just like that's your life. Well,
there's also a different type of currency. You know what I mean? You don't need to have a job and you don't need to have as much money because, you know, there's things that are built into the production budget. If you're on tour in Europe, you know, your food is there when you show up and your transportation is taken care of and your place to sleep is taken care of. When you're on tour, on just an independent tour, you're sleeping on people's floors every night, and people tend to take your art as a form of currency, and you get access to things that money can't buy. And then you come back to the real world, and it's like your money's no good there. Like, you've basically got the currency of a foreign country in your pocket, and you can't fucking spend it anywhere. It's like being a millionaire in Indonesia and then coming over here. You know what I mean?
That's so true. I've never thought of it like that, but it's true. Because it is like, I mean, it is funny, like the things you can get away with because you're in a band, like you're in the band. You know what I mean?
Right.
That probably won't that sentence won't age well. But the
well, no, I mean, but people can get away with being like if
but things that are provided or the way people help you because you're in the band. You know what I mean? Like
right.
They would if you were just a guy at the show and you're like, can I sleep? Like for instance, we were in Lansing, Michigan, and we played a show in Lansing. We were supposed to play in Ferndale the next night, and our school bus broke down. Just absolutely, the transmission blew out.
Ferndale sounds like a made-up ass name, by the way. It sounds like what Fern Gully ended up becoming.
Yeah, Fern Gully was super hipster.
If Fern Gully was like in Georgia, welcome to Ferndale. This is Ferndale, Georgia.
I can't even think of if that's the name of the place now. It's in it's outside of Detroit. You're just now you're just gaslighting me. This place doesn't exist. But
made up name, motherfucker.
Going fucking somewhere, and but it broke down, and this guy, like the night before, he was like, came to the show. We're like, can we stay at your house? Like, fuck yeah, man. And then like so our bus broke down, and we were just stuck there for like 5 days.
Yeah.
And he just let us stay with him.
Yeah, we've had that happen before too, where we just ended up stuck at someone's house for like almost a week, and they, they're cool with it. Whereas if you were just some random dude that drifted into town and met someone at the show, and you stayed at their house for 5 days, they would call the cops.
Yeah, they'd be like, "You are a terrible person."
They'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here!" You like.
You're like in their fridge, like you're out of cheese. They're like, "Leave my fucking house."
Dude, there was one of the things I used to say. It's like you're like a homeless guy that gets laid.
That's true.
It's like you're like a homeless guy that people have sex with once in a while.
Oh my god.
Except I would contend that homeless guys probably have more sex than traveling musicians. I would actually submit that to you, because
that's fucked up to think about. I don't want especially now. I'm just thinking about that Tent City downtown Denver is just
it's a fuck fest, dude. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, because there's not much else to do, and like the dating pool is like, it's probably like, listen, there's only so many of us.
Yeah. You're obviously not going to meet someone somewhere.
We're probably not going to date outside of our community. There's really like they probably just like look out for each other, and they have sex like an isolated tribe in the Amazon somewhere, where it's like they have tribal relationships where like everybody just mates with each other, and then they all take care of the offspring.
That is by far the weirdest thing I've thought about in a long time. I'm actively like not trying to think about that right now. Like I'm actively like, as you're describing it, I'm like, baseball. Like, just thinking.
Hey, speaking of baseball, the Tent City is right by the baseball stadium, and I'll bet. They call it a soup kitchen. Thanks for the fuck shack, Dirty Mike and the boys.
We will have sex in your car again.
Well, hey man, you've got a hard out in 5 minutes.
I'm good actually.
You're good actually?
I saw the text. Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, cool. I thought, yeah, that's cool. We got a little more time. So then what I want to ask you about is, you talked a little bit about how you guys were able to get some work done before the pandemic. We did too. We actually were in the studio and playing shows literally as COVID-19.
You were bouncing around like crazy. I remember that. You were like recording, then doing shows. You were out in California too, right?
Well, yeah, I went out and did a couple shows in California with Monolith, and then we were here, and we were basically in the studio all day and playing shows all night, and had a nice busy week right before, like while that was a couple weeks before that was going on. I went to try and order some enamel pins from our pin company, and they said we're unable to get, our supplies are delayed because of coronavirus outbreak over in China. And I'm like, what's coronavirus? So
and now you really
yeah. And so, hold on. Oops.
What?
Sorry. I went on to the intro screen for a second. But so we were able to get a ton done in the studio. Now, you mentioned that you guys had managed to kind of you managed to get your Kickstarter in. Another thing I want to ask you about, but you guys had managed to get a lot of work done in the studio before everything shut down. What is your release plan, and are you going to try and put an album out in the current climate? Tell me a little bit about that.
So the plan right now is, when it comes to the release, we're still working on like when we want to do it. Because originally it was going to be September, and it just obviously things are just kicked down the road because we were trying to produce it on vinyl too. I think the biggest thing right now is we need to figure out what the album is. Like it's like we don't have a solidified track list yet. We don't have album art because we just still need to figure out like what we're trying to do, because we have a lot of to fill it in more, we have everyone in the band sings and writes songs except me. I am literally useless, but
You fucking freeloader.
Oh, if they're listening right now, you just got like a round of applause. But they're like, yeah, fuck Tyler. But no, so it's 4 different perspectives on just 4 different writers. So we need to figure out like, do we want to try to do like equal representation from everyone? Is that one way we're going to do it? Or is it going to be just like whatever songs we think are the best, or like talk to our producer and our engineer and see what they think? And so with all that going on, it'll probably be a full album release with a full campaign behind it and everything. It's sometime like mid-fall probably. But again, as you know, nothing is promised anymore. So
right.
I think so. We're doing that, and originally it's just we have to think about how we release it now, because we can't like tour in support of it really. So we have to figure out ways to promote it, to promote ourselves with it, to engage a current audience and a new audience. And I think that's a big conversation we're having, is like in what we were talking about before, like what does it mean to be a band right now?
Right.
And that kind of, it's this whole whirlwind of a like identity crisis that in a way it's like a fun challenge, because there's no wrong answer. I mean, there's definitely wrong outcomes and wrong things to do, but there's no like, everyone kind of has a shot at doing their own thing. And luckily we're lucky enough to have amazing people around us who are super talented. Home Field Productions are people who we work with a lot with the filming. And so they're helping us with some video ideas. We have Silo Studios down in South Denver is where we recorded the album.
Great studio.
I think it was Westward called it like the Abbey Road of Denver or something. And it's amazing.
Yeah, they do really great work. They kind of specialize in obtaining classic sounds.
Yeah, I mean, like it's all kind of vintage feel. But you feel like not old. Nothing's like old and broken. It's just like this classic sound to it.
Right.
And like we worked with Tim from Railroad Earth, and he was a huge help too. So we've been lucky enough to be surrounded by like a good community of people willing to help us. So I think we have some good stuff in the work, but it's just it's a strange time, like we don't know what it means. It's what the future holds, and all we can do is play with what we know now and just keep trucking like everything's going to be kind of like this for a while.
There's a sense of like, on one hand, you're like, I'm going, maybe we should put nothing out because we can't tour on it, and there's so much competing for people's attention, even more so than before, because everybody's glued to their phones, you know what I mean? So like there's a greater body of viewers, but there's this like immense, unprecedented body of content creators, because basically everyone is a content channel right now.
It's kind of like when people talk about being like in like studying guitar at Berkeley. You're just in a sea of, I think they say it's like a sea of mediocrity. But I'm not saying people are mediocre, but it's just a sea of people right now trying to.
Well, mediocrity in the true sense. Mediocrity in like the median.
Yeah, there's just so many, like, I mean, it's, how many bands are there out there, and how many people are like
live
I mean,
streaming
like,
and
like,
trying to do content. Like, I have definitely seen changes in the viewership of this podcast simply because there is so fucking much online right now.
Do you remember in April, like, how many live streams there were? I feel
Oh
like
yeah,
it was a million, and like I think
it's crazy.
and that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying live streams are bad. It's you have to figure out what makes yours stand out.
Right.
You
So,
know,
and
like,
that's kind of what you're talking about is like this idea of like, what does it mean to be a band right now? And so, like, I guess to finish the point, what I was saying is like, on one hand, it's like there's this thought of like, maybe we shouldn't create anything because we'll get lost in the shuffle. And then
it's like a guarantee you'll get lost if you don't do anything, and a chance if you
right.
try to do it.
That you might come out and be some sort of innovator and do something that really catches people. Like, we're still working on, you know, the comic and our music videos. Like, I've got an animated music video in the works, and, you know, we've got all this back cataloged music that we're going to release. At the same time, you know, and I can't say this empirically, but anecdotally speaking again, it appears as though really everyone is just kind of watching coronavirus. Everybody is watching the civil unrest in its varying degrees. You know, there's these massive stories that are just capturing the planet's attention, and I just don't know if it's the right ground for an album to get noticed. Like, I feel like people are still watching TV shows, but I don't think people are really retaining and giving a shit as much about movies and television shows and music because they're either transfixed on what's...
It's very passive, their attention to it.
Right, because everybody's attention is consumed by these fucking, like, mammoth stories that are going on the planet.
And it's not like it's a bad thing to pay attention to that stuff. You know, it's like...
it's important to pay attention to. We've got to pay attention to it. That's why I'm saying it's almost like maybe we should just take the bench for a while. You know what I mean?
I mean, I definitely I kind of use the time to. I kind of took that in like a personal sense, where I was like, again, granted, I don't write songs, I don't sing. It's pretty easy for me to take the fucking bench, but
right. You're already sitting down.
Yeah, I know. I just moved my stool back, but just like I'm gonna sit in that chair now. But but like I did that like personally. Like, I took a lot of time for myself and was like, all right, if I'm not doing music, I'm gonna take advantage of this time to get in good shape and focus on my health and focus on my mental health and everything like that.
You do look really good. I should point out, like, seeing you around the restaurant, like, you look very healthy.
Yeah,
you know.
I don't work there. No,
well, dude, and because I don't work there. Well, dude,
it's like I've taken like my drinking has gone down a lot, and I recently like kind of made the decision to really put an effort into not doing it anymore. Because I woke up one day and I was like, this is just not sustainable. But and like, you know,
were you drinking more in the beginning of the pandemic?
Oh yeah, like it was. I mean, totally.
So you're among the group of people who when the pandemic started, the like drinking really ramped up, and then you saw it ramp up that far, and you've kind of dialed it back.
So it came in like waves where it hit. I lived 90 feet from a liquor store when this all hit.
Crawling distance.
Literally like 100%. So like, I was doing a lot, and then I was like, I had some like a kind of a coming to Jesus moment, and I was like, this is not good. Stopped, started focusing on my health. Was running a lot, eating healthy, started drinking again a little bit, nothing crazy, and then like some events that had happened in both our lives kind of happened, and then I started drinking a lot more because of that, and it was like then this realization of like, all right, obviously this isn't working. Like,
Are you talking about the friend that we lost?
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
that was, and it was like, so you're.
Shout out to Sophia Zanjani, man.
Yeah, man. She was the fucking best.
Yeah, she
but
was
it was
pretty
like, I mean, it was honestly like what happened to her, and then like drinking a lot around it, and like my emotions with it. I was like, this is just, so I kind of really made the choice. I was like, I don't think it's forever, but it's like I need to stop and like take account of myself and focus on. Like, I think that's the lesson that in a sad way she taught me, was like, I got to really focus on myself and make sure I'm in a good place, because that won't help. Like, they doing the stuff I want, like drinking, and that won't like help. And
right. It only makes things worse, unfortunately. Yeah. It seems it always, and that was the thing is, and I observed this when I was a bartender more, is, you know, you see people who they drink when a tragedy occurs, but it's almost like, I called it the golden ticket phenomenon, which is where a tragedy occurs and people feel like they've got this golden ticket to annihilate themselves, because annihilating ourselves allows us to act irrationally. Like, if you're experiencing extreme emotional pain, like if you're experiencing extreme grief, there is a certain point where people go, okay, dial it back a bit. Like, they don't say that out loud, and they might approach it gingerly, but there's almost this expectation that as a sober, rational adult, there is a cap to certain expressions of emotion. Like, a sober adult punching a hole in the drywall because of extreme anger is not acceptable behavior. But it is.
Drunk, it's fine.
But when you're drunk, it's fine. And so
I was definitely doing that, where I was like, I would drink to give myself an excuse to, like, I would knowingly want to do stuff and be like, that's not a good idea. And I was like, but if I had whiskey. Like,
right, exactly. We have these injunctions against our own shadow.
Yeah.
You know, the shadows of our nature.
And that's, you know, and it's not like I don't want to sound glorify myself, because it's only been like, hasn't been that long, but it's, you know, but it's,
but you're having you're having the thought, and you probably hadn't given that thought a lot of attention before. And now things are a lot more quiet, so you have more time to kind of sit with what your brain and your body are trying to tell you.
And it's one of those things where, like, if you're playing music and partying, it's like, oh, this guy's a rock star, like, he's crazy. And if you're just a dude who drinks a lot, it's like, that guy's a drunk. Like,
right, I mean? Dude, I totally had this identity built up in my mind, and I've been able to trace it back and, like, find the roots of this identity I tried to build for myself as, like, this crazy maniac train wreck rock and roller dude, and like,
and you want to be, and you like want to. It's honestly like you want to be fucked, like a fucked up person, kind of. Like, I'm like just talking to someone about it right now, and I'm in the same thing where they're like, at some point, it's like, I don't know the exact like day, but like I remember, like, I'm like kind of realizing at one point I decided, like, I want to be this person, or like it was a shield for me to just be like, oh, if I just was the party guy, then I'm safe. You know, like, it's not me doing it. It's a separate.
There's an interesting phenomenon, too, that occurs. And I don't know what your background is like, but I assume it's kind of similar to mine, which is, you know, middle, some might even say upper middle class, white, suburban kid from a good family with loving parents.
Yeah.
And that could not be more boring in terms of an identity, at least in the mind of an adolescent boy.
You, like, want trouble.
Right. So you want people to think you're a badass.
Did you have friends that your parents hated?
You know, I have to give my parents credit.
Not hated, but they were just like, I'd rather.
There was a few.
Yeah.
There was a few. There was one friend that my dad singled out, and, you know, at the time, like, I can understand where he was coming from, but that particular friend probably wasn't the most of his, probably ought not have been the most of his worries. And my mom has maybe made a comment one or two times, but for the most part, my parents have been very warm, kind, accepting people where my friend group's concerned. My dad, honestly, was for the most part pretty ambivalent and like in the dark as far as my friend group went. I mean, my two lifelong best friends, he didn't know like who had which name. Like they were brothers, Logan and Marshall. He wrong named them until we were teenagers, and they've been my friends since I was like before I have memories. So my dad was just kind of like, you know, completely ambivalent to what was going on in my life. But there's, I guess what the point is there was like this time where it was like I really wanted to establish myself in some way and establish some kind of identity. And there's this point when we're adolescents where we are trying to show the world who we are. And, you know, I was kind of a weird, sensitive, goofy, loud, hyperactive kid from a white upper middle class suburban family. And somehow I got the idea that wasn't cool or that wasn't good enough or that I was lacking in some way. And so over time, you know, I began to develop this persona, and drugs and alcohol were just part of it. And it became such a part of it that I forgot that was something that I started doing to be included and accepted and become part of this subculture that I thought was so fucking cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's not like I just want to say, I'm not trying to make it sound like I went to the devil's doorstep. Like I wasn't crazy. I was just, I think you just need to, at some points you need to like check yourself.
Well, I'm a big fan. Look, I think rock bottom narratives are great. I think they're super valuable. I think people hearing them, like it can help people make great choices. I think they're very compelling stories. I even think they're romantic in some ways. But I am also a huge fan of the idea of harm reduction and being able to have the self-awareness to go, I'm doing myself harm. I need to make some subtle corrections here and there in order for my life to function at an optimal level. Like it doesn't always have to be this dramatic, cataclysmic, Phoenician epic tale. Phoenician, like as in of the Phoenix.
Yeah. I thought you were referring to I don't know, but
people from Phoenix or the Phoenicians.
One thing that's weird for me now is like really it's like the last 10 days have been like, dude, I'm really focusing in on it, and it's the funniest thing is like I'm doing what people who haven't played music or like live a normal life, like what they think is normal for me is like fucking bananas. Like I've been waking up at like 7 a.m. and going on a run and then making myself a smoothie, and I'm like, this is wild. Like it's like
this is like the people that you see in the park. This is what they do every day, and like, but to our community, that's like, dude, I don't know, he's really losing it, man. He's like exercising and getting 8 hours of sleep a night. I mean, what the fuck is up with this dude?
It's like 9:30, and I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I'm like, this is sick. Like, it's funny that like, I moved out of college. I left college, I graduated college, and then like was playing music, working in restaurants, doing this. I've never like done the 9 to 5 kind of life. So it's been interesting this quarantine. Like I've had kind of a 9 to 5 job working on bikes, and then like coming home and like getting tired at like 8 and just being like, oh, I'm gonna go to bed. Like it's kind of crazy. It's been really nice.
I'm kind of into it. I gotta tell you, I'm kind of into it. Like going to bed at 11 is like fucking partying for me. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just realize how dysfunctional my life has been at certain points, where it's like hanging around with a bunch of other people who are struggling with substance abuse of some sort, just like just chain smoking cigarettes and drinking beer and shot after shot and doing mysterious white powder that I bought from a total stranger in a dirty, disease-ridden bathroom. Like, that at one point seemed like this very cool idea, and like, I'm living on the fringes, man. I'm living outside of society. And like, now I look at that and I'm like, man, I really like getting 8 hours of sleep a night, and I really like getting up early and taking my kid for a bike ride, and I really like, honing my craft rather than like playing music to like purge the demons. It's like, I really
isn't
like.
It weird to like at that. Isn't it weird that positive things are coming out of this? Like, I was thinking about that earlier, where I was like,
Oh yeah.
I'm like sitting there. I'm like, man, like I'm in shape. I'm like focusing on my mental health. I'm becoming the best version of myself. And like righting wrongs or something like that. And then I'm just like, and then I think about like, oh, there's people in the like. It's a weird thing that there's positives. And I mean, something my dad always says, like, you got to find the silver lining in the cloud. And I am, but it's this weird thing where you're like, as of now, I'm coming out of this, like, I'm coming up aces, baby. Like,
well, dude, they're all like, there's this idea that we have in our brain of the game, like Alan Watts talks about. Are you familiar with Alan Watts at all? Yeah. He would talk about the game of black and white, which is like, we have this idea in our head of this game of black and white where there's good things and bad things, and good must win. White must win was, the way he would talk about it.
what?
you want to avoid as much darkness as possible and experience as much light as possible. And what he talked about is in a lot of the Eastern philosophies, it was, it wasn't separate. It goes with, I
always say you can't have peaks without valleys.
Yeah, exactly. And that, man, I always say you can't have peaks without valleys.
I'll tell you, man, my dad used to tell me, you can't start a car without gas, but you can't get a gas without a car, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was very angry when you borrowed my orbital sander without my permission. And in the future, I would appreciate if you would not take it off the job site, and that also you and the guys wouldn't hurt my feelings by laughing at the bumper sticker on my car about my son becoming an Eagle Scout. I'm super proud of him.
Yeah, he built a staircase at the library. What's your son do, Cyrus? That's right.
That's right.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I get it if you guys go to the Elks Club, but I would really appreciate an invite on bingo night.
My feelings were very hurt.
So if anyone's tuning in right now, it's a bit we do. It's called emotional training at a DeWalt factory.
Yeah. Emotional sensitivity training at a DeWalt factory. Yeah. That's another bit, another inside joke that will not be funny to anyone else.
Your food was ever laid at fire while we were both there.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's why. Cracking jokes.
Yeah.
No, but it's so this idea of like, black goes with white, good goes with bad, darkness goes with light. It's like, you look at something like some of the most tragic events. Like, let's just give as a parallel example. Let's talk about the Bubonic Plague. Were it not for the Bubonic Plague, we might not have seen the end of feudalism for a certain, for much longer than, I think eventually it would have gone away, but because so many people got killed and because feudal society collapsed, people that worked the lands for those lords, like people who were serfs, like went on and started new settlements and began figuring out different ways to to survive in the world. They became less dependent, like they weren't able to depend on their lords and masters, and so they went on and did other things, and it led to the development of our society.
Well, I think it's a thing, like, at least the way I think about it is like, you know, we're in a situation right now where first and foremost, you got to focus on your health, focus on the community health, make sure you're being safe so that everyone else is being safe, you know?
Right.
And then we have this chance of like the world's kind of on pause, or like life as we know it is not continuing right now.
Right.
And so like it's a chance to focus on like you could come. My dad, something my dad was always talking to me about, and he's like, this is a chance to come out of this like better, or like come out of this like stronger in some way. Like you want to be the person who like focused on your craft, like you were talking about, or like focused on your like take this time to come back to the world when we get back to it as a better form of yourself.
Right.
Whatever.
How are you going to make yourself proud when we come out of this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So tell me. Let's answer that question. How are you going to make yourself proud? Oh no, keep going. Sorry.
I definitely tried the crushing PBRs method, and that didn't happen. But no, I mean it's just, and and I don't want to come off high and mighty because I'm not at all. I'm not, I'm just a dude trying to not be fat and like get good night's sleep. But like, you just, for me, it's like I would just want to be healthy mentally, healthy physically, develop good habits. And I mean, really, this is like the last 2 or 3 weeks is when this has really been hitting hard for me. So like really realizing that like, take a pause, like reset my life on out, like reset the drinking thing. Right. Focus on eating healthy, learn how to eat, learn how to cook. Like I've always wanted to be better at cooking and do stuff like that, and just kind of almost like, it's not like a vision board, but like mentally think about who you want to be, because we all kind of have that image of like
the avatar, yeah,
and like how do you get to that person? And the person I always saw was outdoorsy and in good shape, and like biked way more than I did, because I always grew up biking and I just didn't really do that. And so I've been focusing on that. Just kind of, it's like a joke I always say is like when people say they're into trying new things, it's rarely like heat yoga. It's usually like things that'll hurt you more. Like, so I'm doing the like just focusing on what makes me happy, healthy, and like, taking a look at yourself too. Like, meditating more, like figuring out if you've like what habits you have that are bad, what habits you have are good. And this is all before lunch, by the way. This is all you should be doing this before lunch. Figure this all out, and then
right. There's this when you talk about Abraham Maslow was. He's the one who gave us Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He would talk about in every moment we're either moving forward 1% toward, +1 towards growth, or -1 into safety and comfort. And in a time when there is almost no safety and comfort, it's like all you can do, like it's kind of forced us, I think, to go, okay, am I going to get steamrolled by the world right now? Am I going to get steamrolled by reality, or am I going to figure out a way to take this feeling of helplessness and use it to drive me to evolving at a rate I might have previously thought impossible?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like you have to. One thing I've been thinking about recently is like, what would I like? Looking at my gut instinct in things, like my gut, what I like my first instinct to do in a situation, and I'll like kind of consciously be like, all right, so I've done that before. How's the outcome? Like like, dude,
totally.
And I think like with like anxiety and self-consciousness and stuff like that. That's a big part of it, where you're like, all right, so I've gone with that mental like self-talk, didn't work out, so maybe I should like ignore it this time, or
Right.
You know, it's
I love that it's I love that it is affecting everyone, by varying degrees, and that's a whole different discussion. As far as, the people, there are certainly people who are more insulated than others, but we're all being affected by this by a matter of degree. And when I say this, I mean everything that is going on the planet right now. And we're all super aware of it. So I think that there is less of the concern with maintaining the status quo because we have less to lose because society has fallen apart to a degree.
I mean, we're not going to come back to the. I think I used to think this was like kind of a overdramatic thing to say, but I don't think we're going to come back to the world as we knew it.
No, absolutely not.
It's going to be a different world, so we got to be different people.
There's going to be things that I am not even aware of yet that my son will never know. You know what I mean? There's just going to be certain cultural mores that changed in a very short amount of time in the first couple years of his life. And we'll have to be like, oh, yeah, back before you were born, it was like this. And there's many of those things that we can't even begin to conceive of because we can't see into the future, and we can't, we'll be looking back over like 20 years from now. We're going to look back and be like, remember the world, how much the world changed?
Well, it's like, think about like before and after the internet.
Right.
Like, think of how insane that, like, I don't know the world before the internet.
Touring with road maps. That was a thing.
Dude, I would have quit by this point, I think. Like, that, could you imagine, like, I can't
booking tours with telephones.
I couldn't even imagine the arguments. Like, because it would become this thing of, like, you don't think I can read a fucking map? You can read a map, dude. I'm just saying, this is an access. I know that's an access. Like, I'm already playing it out in my head.
Right.
It would have been like the quickest, like, 2-day tour. Like, that's it, I'm out.
Yeah. We had a guy in our band for a while. Shout out to Tay Hamilton, friend of the show, friend for life. He used to be very insistent on road maps and very mistrusting of technology. And I'm glad we had him because there were times when technology didn't work. You know what I mean? You're in the middle of nowhere and you like all you have is a mile marker and no cell signal, and you've got one guy in the band who knows how to work a map, you know what I mean? And get you out of there. Like like looking back on it, we gave him a lot of shit, but if everything collapses, if 5G destroys communications and we can no longer talk to each other and GPS stops working, and by the way, GPS is a myth. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, it's called George Soros. No, but dude, I think the Bill Gates vaccine thing is the funniest thing in the world because people are like, they're putting a chip to track you, and I was like, you're posting information about this on a phone, right?
With a chip in it.
Yeah, it's like they've already, like, why would, that's so
You've already got a chip. You're already a cyborg, man.
Yeah, it's like, why, no, but it's like, why would, they're like, they're going to put a chip in you so they can track you, and it's like, dude, that's like so antiquated right now. They're like, dog, they already won. Like,
dude, everybody knows where you are and they don't care.
Yeah.
All they care is that you buy stuff.
Exactly.
All they care is that they're reaching you with their ads.
Like, I'm sure
they don't care where you go.
I'm sure my phone's been listening to this whole conversation. I'm about to have so many ads for weird things.
Hey, you know what, dude? There's a part of me that loves it because my phone always tells me all the stuff that I need. Like, it's like, oh my God, I was just thinking I needed that. How'd you know that, phone?
Yeah, that is true. It is nice sometimes. Like, I like technology. I'm not, like, anti-technology.
I think it's neat. I just don't like it when unscrupulous people yield it in a malevolent fashion.
I just think I'm like in such a mindset of like, what's good for me, what's bad for me, and it's like almost like I'm putting things into two categories where like I'll be on Instagram for like an hour and I'll just like throw my phone to guys like, this is bad.
I mean, dude, I got to be honest with you. Like, I think social media in its current form, I think is incredibly insidious. I think it's great that I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and tear it all down, but I think social media needs to be restructured, just because of the way that the way that discourse occurs, the way that algorithms work, the way that it monetizes outrage and people's emotions, and is designed.
Well, it's an echo chamber too.
Well, and it rewards people for being disingenuous. Like, because you're basically going on and you're trying to get a dopamine hit in the form of likes and comments and retweets and views and whatever else the currency is for the platform. And so it will cause people to sloganize very complicated matters so that they can be a part of the group, so that they can get that dopamine hit. Like, people will say things because either it scratches that itch on a neurological level, or, because it helps their career in some level, or it helps their social standing on some level. And I don't think that is a healthy way to conduct discourse.
It's fucked.
Well, and it's just bad for your brain. Like, blowing up your brain with fight or flight response all day cannot be good for you.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll eat my words in 20 years and they'll be like, human beings advanced in, at an exponential rate because of the advent of Facebook. But I sincerely doubt it. My sense is that in its current form. Go ahead.
I think you develop, but it's like, I read a book a long time ago, and I didn't finish it. But
I read a book once.
Yeah, I read the about what's the Dimitri Martin joke? I read about the author of an autobiography, but but it was talking about how your children's brains. So your generation who didn't I guess, did you grow up? You didn't really grow up with video games or anything like that. So a lot of your time you would watch TV. You were just taking in information, But
right.
Now kids are growing up manipulating and creating and puzzle solving, and so it's like our brains are. And again, I didn't study science, and then I did. It was bad, so I don't know everything about it. But it's like our brain, we do develop differently as problem solvers, and our mind. So, technology is helpful in that way because it's preparing you for the world to come, where it's only going to get more and more involved in our life. But sometimes, you've mentioned it before and everything, going to Alaska thoughts. I'm like, man, if I could just find a cabin in Alaska.
Oh my God, dude. I've almost totally forgot. I should have included this in your introduction. Tyler Gwynn is the one who coined the phrase Alaska thoughts. For those of you who've been following the podcast for the last couple of years, Alaska thoughts is a term we throw around on this show almost on a weekly basis. We throw that. Oh, dude, I have friends. Dude, Tyler, I totally forgot. Dude, I have friends who have legitimately hit me up privately and said, hey, man, the Alaska thoughts have been getting me lately. I've been, really struggling, and hearing you guys talk about it on the podcast really helps me out. It is in the vernacular. It is in the lexicon of MF podcast listeners. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tyler Gwynn, you created the term Alaska thoughts.
I think about it all the time.
Same.
I always say it's what's your backup plan? I'm gonna go be a bartender in Kodiak, Alaska. It's just this idea of when you're in, and I think I was kind of in a place like that for a little, where you're especially, granted, it's quarantine. So it's this weird time, so it's not it's just the world was crazy, but you're just sitting there man, if I bet I could just go run away from it all, or go live. Alaska's the best place to do that. And
I will say this: it has become, the situation we're in right now has, in a lot of ways, been a trial run of playing the Alaska thoughts out. It's I've always wondered what would happen if I just disconnected from everything, and these part of my identity just ceased to exist, and I unplugged from society.
Well, it's all based off of have you ever heard of guy Dick Proenneke?
No.
So this guy Dick Proenneke, by the way, the best documentary you could ever watch on PBS. It's this guy, and he shot it all on Super 8 film, but it's him moving to Alaska and building a cabin from scratch.
Oh, cool.
In the 60s. The first thing, and I mean from scratch, the first thing he does is carve the handles for his tools.
Holy shit.
And he fells trees or whatever the right term is.
So that's where you got the idea for the Alaska
thoughts. Where
thoughts.
you're like, maybe if I just disconnected from society, or you just stop being into being in society. Yeah, and that's the idea
really
for
cool.
it. It's but then it developed into this it's yeah, I'm just gonna go find the saddest town in Alaska and be a bartender.
Yeah, it started. It became this thing where the thoughts that you get when you're really sad. But one thing that has changed is there's also this element of empowerment in a way now because of the current situation. It's wow, I'm not gonna be able to play a show for a while. I'm not gonna be able to do anything with my bandmates. I can't even go to a concert. I don't even really want to go to a restaurant.
This is literally I had this. In an Alaska thought. It's so I haven't said that term in so long, and now I've said it 18 times in 2 minutes. But I've always had this thought where it was if I could just live in a cabin for 2 months, never see anyone, and just focus on myself. And I was kind of, and it sounds like a ridiculous, but I think like that. And then kind of a month into quarantine, I was I think I'm in that cabin now.
Dude,
think I'm there.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's I wonder what it would be like if I just let myself slip away into obscurity forever. If I just let it be okay that I'll be forgotten and just slip away. And
your kid would be pissed.
Well, no. See, I don't.
He'd come with.
I mean more slipping away into that life.
Yeah.
Stop being the lead singer, dude. Stop being
lean into suburban life.
Yeah, dude, just totally lean into it. The dude from Black Flag did. What's his fucking name? Des Cadena from Black Flag. He just I think that's who it was. It was one of the guys from Black Flag, one of the original singers. Just his wife got pregnant. It was one of the guys from Black Flag. It's in that documentary, the other F word documentary that the dude from Pennywise made. But she's like, my wife got pregnant, and we just decided to stop being punks, and we pulled out, and we became parents, and that's all we did. And I've thought about that, and I've been
definitely it's what we were talking about. We were man, this is we're loving getting good night's sleep and sleeping in the same place. It's kind of one of those things where you're man, this is what I was this is what I didn't want to do.
I was afraid of it. I'm so afraid of being forgotten and so afraid of being a failure. And what this has kind of done is it's put me in front of the very real possibility of just aging out of this thing. And, I think
still do aspects of it, it's, you can still you won't be playing and you won't be touring or anything, but you could become just to play it at the same place every other Saturday night or something, do the cup, kind of play music for the love of it.
Well, right, and it's also been what I was telling Tony on the phone the other day is I am thinking of the long game. I want to play music with you guys way into the future, and if I need to let go of it for now so that we can still have a relationship and keep doing it down the road, I'd much prefer that. I'd much prefer the friendship. And it's less about, even if you don't quit, it makes it so you are less terrified at the prospect of failure, and it takes you off the hedonic treadmill. You know what I mean?
I think about that a lot, where it's if you play the long game, it's it's kind of like running. You can, I used to run every day as hard as I could, and it was good, and then it all of a sudden wasn't good because you're pushing yourself when you shouldn't be, and so you got to take the rest days, and you got to actually rest and recover. And part of me has always thought maybe this time it's like maybe it's not a time for art bands to like maybe we just take this time to become the best version of ourselves we can as a band.
Be all the way off.
And just like, so when we come back, we take that recovery time and just come back super hard instead of like, because if you're, it's like if you're just trying to punch through a brick wall and you can't make it, you're going to defeat yourself. So that's the thing too, is like, there's no playbook any of us know. Like no one knows. No one's like, all right, so I talked to this guy and he went through this before. Like no one knows what to do right now. And so it's part of the fun and it's part of the challenge.
Right. Yeah. And on that, that's actually a good place to call it. We're at about 2 hours, 15 minutes. And I'm actually, speaking of jamming, I'm actually going to jam with my drummer, Ty, right now. We're going over to RocketSpace, and we're just going to...
Hell yeah.
We're not even having band practice.
We're just letting it go.
We're just going to go hang out and jam. You know, the lead singer is going to pretend to play the guitar, and he's going to play drums, and that's it. We're just going to go hang out and play music for the sole enjoyment of it. And dude, I am a big fan of what you're saying of the analogy of recovery. And you know, I think it's going to, I think we're going to see a lot of people emerge at a completely different logical level in terms of being a creator and being human beings. And I've already seen a tremendous amount of beneficial change for you, man. You look great. You're bright-eyed, and you look 5 years younger. You really do. And
cutting a foot of hair off was a big part of that.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll do it. But I mean, dude, you look like John Fogerty in his prime.
You hear that, Mom?
Hey, real quick, I just want to thank our sponsors: Evergroove Studio, RocketSpace Rehearsal Studios, Burn TV Studios. Let's see, who else? Flipside Music, Matula Plumbing. Matula! Shit rolls downhill. Don't be at the bottom. Your number 2 is our number 1 priority. Your shit is our bread and butter. Angie's List Super Service Award winner and all the rest. You know the whole fucking bit. Matula, get your shits piped out. Mutiny Information Cafe. This is a Mutiny transmission, of course. And last but most, I want to thank all of our patrons. Once again, all the people who back us via a small recurrent contribution at patreon.com/mfruckus. I also want to thank my guest, Tyler Gwynn from 10th Mountain Division, for coming on and talking to me on the program. Dude, it's been really great catching up. It's been really good.
It's been great. I'd love to do this again soon. This is fun. I don't get to get in front of a mic that often, so when I do, I'm like...
Well, dude, when we start doing episodes in person again, I would love to have you on the show, show you the studio and everything the way we used to do it.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, I would love to have you back on. Yeah, I mean, dude, you're one of my favorite dudes, and I say that in all sincerity. I really enjoyed working with you, and I'm glad we've been able to. That was the one thing that we always connected on, was it was like we were in these two different scenes, but we had these universal experiences just as dudes in bands, and it's something that you and I connected on very early on, and I really appreciate the relationship we built out of it, and I appreciate you coming on and talking with me, man.
Well, thank you very much, Aaron. Thanks for always being someone I can look to as someone who's been through it before and can understand what I'm going through, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks so